Shalom Aleichem in Parashat Korach in Bamidbar Tes Zayin Pasuk Aleph. The Yakar explains that the whole first verse is a whole story, and there's so many levels to this story, but I'm going to discuss just one of them. So the pasuk says, "V'yikach Korach." Who is Korach? He's ben Yitzhar, ben Kahat, ben Levi. Already in each and every name there is a story. And who did he take? V'yikach Korach, v'dasan v'aviram, b'nei Eliav. So he took these two men, Dasan and Aviram, who are, by the way, the children of Ruvain. B'nei Eliav is of the tribe of Ruvain. And along with him, On ben Pelet. Again, B'nei Ruvain, altogether. Those three are descendants of Ruvain. So the Yakar wants to explain that one of the reasons that he took an argument against Moshe, one of the things that really bothered Korach was that he was passed over. Moshe and Aaron were both brothers born from the firstborn of Kahat. So Kahat had four sons, Amram, Yitzhar, Hebron, and Uziel. So Moshe and Aaron come from Amram. Korach is from Yitzhar, the second born. And so he says, well, shouldn't I be the most fitting to be the second, meaning in place of Aaron? And who was placed as the leader of Kahat? That was none other than Elitzaphan ben Uziel. So the fourth born of Kahat was placed as the leader over Kahat, and he really felt that he was dissed, that he was passed over, and it caused him a lot of bitterness. That one of the arguments, and perhaps even one of the main arguments, is that he was upset about the whole idea of who would be the servants in the temple, i.e. the replacements of the firstborn. Ruvain was the firstborn, and it was taken away from him. Truth be told, it was not taken away by Moshe, it was already taken away by Yaakov. But what the taina of Korach was, Moshe, you made the whole thing up. And in order to show that was what he was saying, the Medrash explains, the famous Medrash, what did Korach take? V'yikach Korach. Korach took a bagged full of techelis, entirely of this particular color, and asked Moses, does it need any fringes? If the whole idea is to be a leader, meaning to remind you of what you need to know, the whole bagged is of the particular color that's supposed to remind you of what you need to know. So what do you need? Is it chayev or is it patur? And the second thing that the Medrash in Tanchuma brings down is that he asked a question. If you have a room full of Sifrei Torah, now the Torah wasn't written yet in its full form, so it's an academic question. If you have, and you're giving us the mitzvah of Mezuzah, so if you have a room full of Sifrei Torah, which each one has a portion of the Mezuzah itself, what would you need a Mezuzah on the door as a reminder? What would it serve as it's very similar to the question about the techelis, or let's say the tzitzis. So the Yakar actually says, I get the idea of techelis, because it says, V'yikach Korach. Korach took. Korach took what? The techelis? He took the tzitzis? Very simply, just turn back one page and you see the whole parshas of tzitzis. So it makes sense where the Medrash got the idea that Korach took tzitzis and was trying to show up and argue with Moshe that you made this up. If an Am Kadosh, everyone is holy, you don't need a leader. That's the first thing. And the second idea, he even asked, where does this idea come from that the Mezuzah is what he took? So he's quoting from our chapter, verse 27. And over there it says, so they got themselves away from near the dwelling of Korach, Dasan and Aviram, from all around. Dasan and Aviram went out erect at the entrance of their tents, and their wives, and their children, and their infants. Now in Hebrew it says, Yatsu nitzavim petach ahalehem. They went out erect at the entrance of their tents. What is posted at the entrance of their tents other than a mezuzah? However, the Hebrew of Rashi says, Bekuma zekufa. They went out standing upright, erect. Lecharef ulegadef, to actually insult and vilify. And it's explained because of the way the grammar is, that the word nitzavim is used to modify yetzu'u. They went out. So going out is an action, moving from place to place. But nitzav describes the inactive state of being erect, or entering that inactive state. So basically what Rashi is saying, they had an air of erect bearing, and that was done defiantly. Now what I mentioned at the beginning, the Yakar says it's one continuous thought. The whole storyline begins with Yakar Korach until Bnei Ruvain, because these Dasan and Abiram, as I mentioned, are from that he took his own claim and he took Bnei Ruvain's claim. And so there we see. So then we see how he took up the claims of Bnei Ruvain, not necessarily because Moses was the one that took it away from him, meaning away from the Bnei Ruvain. That was Yaakov, but Moses also played a part. So the Yakar says like this: Mikol makom al yedei shetachzor kol srara lebeleha yakshavu shegam lehem tachzor bechora. This is a concept that what should return to every owner, whether it's an owner of authority or even the truth is owner of things. Things will always be returned to the rightful ownership. So he used this claim in order to gain the allies of Bnei Ruvain, that eventually you should have this, and here's an opportunity to take advantage. Agree with me, join my fight against Moshe and Aaron, really against Hashem, because of another concept that Chazal bring down in Sanhedrin, Kuf Yud Amid Aleph. Shecholek al Rabo kecholek al Shechina. So not only were they, several places mentions that they were arguing against Moshe and Aaron, but it mentions other places they were contending against Hashem himself. And why they were contending against Hashem himself is a whole very deep philosophical argument, whether or not we'll call the first cause has the right to make and choose the differences between the different things of his creation, such as the difference between Am Yisrael and the rest of the world, or between Am Yisrael, within Am Yisrael, and the Levim and the Kohanim. And this is a very deep philosophical discussion that needs to be hashed out at a different time.
Yiboneh,